Bienvenidos a otro video en nuestra serie por pastores. El título de este segmento es importante aprender el idioma del país de destino. If you didn't understand this introduction, perhaps I need say no more. If you live in the United States, you live in the second largest Spanish-speaking nation in the world. And if you speak no Spanish, there are communities in the U.S. where you would be an alien in your own country. The late linguistics professor and missionary language expert Dr. Donald Larson established a four-stage continuum for cross-cultural communicative competence. A missionary starts as a stranger. Gradually, he or she becomes an acquaintance, then a friend, and finally, an influencer. The trigger for the transition from stranger to acquaintance is verbal contact, and conversation is an essential component in every subsequent transition. If missionaries cannot communicate effectively, they will remain strangers. Generally, our relationship with God is conducted in our mother tongue, the language we heard in the womb. In Acts chapter 2, the people gathered in Jerusalem heard the apostles speak in their own native languages. God could have done it differently by allowing them all to understand Aramaic, for example. Instead, he chose to reverse the Babel effect. Missionary language learning is important on a number of levels. The most obvious is that learning the target language enables missionaries to function practically in another place and culture. Buying food, fulfilling legal obligations, taking public transportation, or explaining to a plumber that your toilet is running over would all be impossible without language skills. We cannot divorce language from culture. Language gives missionaries insight into how people think and act. For instance, if there's no word for commitment in a language, the missionaries will need to adjust their expectations when it comes to commitment from the people they're reaching. Idiomatic expressions reflect the history and experience of the target community. Not everyone can acquire a second language easily. A pre-adolescent child in an immersion context can become fluent in 6 months or less. This is why we encourage missionaries to make sure their children become bilingual as soon as possible. And this requires constant exposure to native speakers. Missionaries must be intentional and disciplined to provide this interaction, which is also essential for their own language learning. If missionaries never master the second language, every attempt to do so will be appreciated by native speakers. There are two basic approaches to language learning. Implementation, which views language as a way to complete tasks, and integration, which views language as a means of nurturing relationships. And at BMW, we embrace and teach integration, which makes language learning a lifelong proposition. We test and evaluate the candidates' language aptitudes and learning styles. Through a battery of assessment instruments, we seek to identify and address potential obstacles to cross-cultural effectiveness before missionaries arrive in the field, and these are discussed in an interview with the missionaries and their area director. Muchísimas gracias por su atención.